To the bill.
To the bill.
Colleagues, I've said this before on the floor, this is what we've come to. Oregon's land use laws have, as you all know, I worked a lot of years on them. And what we've got is a land use system where we as a state legislature have now become the local planning board. It's convoluted, it's crazy, and basically what it comes down to is you have enough resources in this state, you have enough money in this state, you can get what you want in this state. And the average citizen is stuck in a situation where he or she cannot access the land use system. So bills like this one come forward, and it creates a special loophole in the land use laws that you can see by the different definitions that are there is specifically aimed at a few people. I've been involved in writing this type of legislation. I've been involved in writing this kind of legislation because at some point it's the only way you can get things through. But on the flip side, you have to start asking the question, what are we doing with land use laws in this state? I traveled the state for nearly 10 years of my life, and I talked to people in little rural communities around this state, from Lakeview to Elgin to Wallowa, all over this state, who had a dream. They had worked in the mill, they had worked in the aluminum plant, they had worked wherever, and they had bought a little piece of property with the rights to build or rights to do something on it, and it was in their rights when they bought it. And the state just wipes those rights away. So what do we do now? We create bills like this one. This bill, what it does is creates a new loophole for somebody else to go through, but you have to have all of these very high standards that you got to meet, which basically means maybe 4 or 5 people can get through this system. Is that just? By what standard do I judge this bill? By what moral standard do I judge this bill or other bills that come through like this? Do I judge it to say, hey, you know what, we got to do something for the economy. We got to get this stuff through because we have legitimate Oregon businesses who are growing and who need flexibility, so let's give it? That's a standard that would make me vote for this bill. But then on the flip side, what standard do I have when you have to come to the legislature, hire lobbyists, manipulate through the process, make contributions to nonprofit organizations to make sure your bill gets through so that you can get something through that nobody else can? My problem with these kind of bills is I watch people pass these kind of bills and then they become the plaintiffs suing their neighbors the next time around. So there's no sense of justice there. The land use system in this state, I'm just going to say it on the record, is corrupt. If you have enough money, you can get your process through. My experience one time, and I'll just express this on the record also, when I was working at Oregonians in Action, I had done something that had slowed up a development someplace else to protect a small property owner. Got a phone call from the developer, thought we were on the same team. I said, well, my job is to protect the small property owner. And I mentioned the fact that, look, you know, we're not really on the same team. You give contributions to nonprofits that fight against the rights of individual landowners. And the person on the phone says, oh, I see how this is done. Well, how much of a contribution would I need to make to you to make this go away? That answered every question about Oregon's land use laws right there. The problem we have in this state is a land use system that structurally does not work. It is broken, it is corrupt, it has made the Oregon legislature, the state land use planning board, it makes no common sense. We make rules so they apply to the entire state when they should apply to a broad policy, and the counties and the cities implement that. We have stifled growth, we have given people false advantages, we have picked winners and losers, and at some point, folks, this type of bill right here is a double-edged sword. Because we will help an Oregon business go forward and try to forward their business. But will they then be the next business to come down here and try to sue their neighbor from doing the same thing? We've created a system of poking holes in the laws if you have influence. And I've decided there's no justice, there's absolutely no standard, objective standard, there is no rational objective standard that I can vote for these types of bills that poke holes and don't set a statewide policy. The people whose eyes I looked into over the years who got screwed by the land use system every time I traveled around the state, They got screwed by the system, and nobody at this legislature cared. Nobody cared. Because when it comes to an individual person who sacrificed their life working in a mill to get a piece of property so they could build a house for their kids on their own property, we can sacrifice them. But if you're a big industrial user and you can move something through this legislature, then you're okay. In my community, where I grew up, there's wineries all over the place. The objection of the wineries to people being able to build houses on their own land is it would create too much traffic on the roads. But now we can put in wineries all over the place, and there's no way to recover a traffic impact fee or to pay for the additional police that it takes. There's no reciprocity there. There's no weighing of the benefits and burdens. Because why? Because we at the legislature set this policy, and the local governments have to implement it. Colleagues, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, and I appreciate everybody listening, because I just want to say this. We have a land use system that is broken, that is flawed, that is corrupt, that is purchased all the time, and at some point we at the legislature have to fix it. I'm going to vote no on this bill because I think it perpetuates the problem rather than solves it. Thank you, Mr. President.